Joining us this afternoon is a very special guest. He has a long legacy here in North Texas with bringing success to basketball teams here for our young, amazing talent that we have and moving on into college. I'm talking about Desoto High School basketball coach, boys basketball coach, Richard Bacon. We spoke with him a couple of weeks ago as he had a big game, the McDonald's All-Star game, and won. And we're following up with him today for a really big announcement. And I'm going to let you do the honors, Coach Bacon. What's your big announcement?
Well, I'm getting teary-eyed now.
Oh.
My big announcement is I'm about to walk away from the game of basketball.
Wow.
And I am going to retire after 44 years of giving everything I got to basketball and the kids that I was involved with. So it's kind of hard, but at the same time, I'm also welcoming in this new challenge of life without necessarily going to school every day, the grind of coaching and teaching and all of that stuff. But so I'm excited about the afterlife, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to walk away because I'm not retiring because I'm too old, haven't had enough success, any of those things. I'm retiring because, in the words of my wife, it's time.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all it takes is someone very special in your life to tell you that, because you might not necessarily know that it's time right now.
Right. With my daughter going off to college, that played a part in it, and she's going a long way away. She's going to Virginia State, which is in Petersburg, Virginia. And I think she told me it's about a 20-hour drive.
Ooh.
So,
How many Buc-ee's along the way is that?
Right. And so if she needs me, I need to be able to go without leaving a whole bunch of obligations behind.
That's an amazing father. That is. In 44 years, you have been a father figure to so many different students that you have seen walk the halls of the high school, let alone play on your team. 44 years. Why not 45?
You know what? I didn't pick the number. It just kind of picked me, I guess. It probably would have been 45 if I had fallen like 696 or 698, and I needed 2 more wins to get to 700. But we accomplished that 702 now. 702. And so that accomplishment is out of the way. It was a personal goal. And so it made it kind of easy. And then winning the McDonald's game, boy, that was like putting the cherry on top. And I've told a few friends this story before, but I didn't want to become the Tom Brady. And when I say that, Brady stayed a year after winning the Super Bowl. He lost his family. He lost to the Cowboys in the first round the next year. And I just want to go out on top. And in the words of my superintendent, Dr. Rogers, she said, get off the elevator when it's going up, not when it's coming down.
That's very true. And you have inspired children for literally generations. And you've also had your summer camp as well.
Yes.
As beyond just teaching the high school. How important is that summer camp to you?
The summer camp was very important because when I first started that camp back, I don't know how long ago it was, but you got to see those kids when they were 3rd and 4th graders, or maybe even younger, because we started camp at age 6. So you saw those kids then, and through camp itself, you build a relationship with those kids, and they couldn't wait to play for you. And so then you get them, and now, what I used to tell my guys when they graduate, what's going to be important to me? It's not going to be whether or not you make it to the NBA, but just you doing well in life. And I want to see your kids. And I've got a chance to meet some of my former players' children. And surprisingly, I'm actually working with a couple of kids who played for me. I've hired one as an assistant coach. I've inspired 2 to become coaches, and I've had another kid who works in our school system at Desoto that played for me, and he said I cut him from the team, but he just remember all the good things I told him about growing up and becoming a good young man, and he's always thought well of me in that respect. But he didn't even play on my team his senior year. And
it's amazing.
He still has some admiration for me, so must have did a couple of things right.
It's amazing what piece of you leave with someone after an interaction like that, for that to come full circle and for you to hear back from those students. It's not only DeSoto High School, you also had a huge influence at Lincoln. And
Yes.
those state titles that you left, there's still, the awards and the trophies in the hallways, I presume, so, your legacy is lasting far beyond these 44 years. Has that resonated with you?
It's starting to sink in a little bit. The guy that I was talking about a minute ago, who said I cut him off the team, he actually works at DeSoto. He came by today to see me and said hello and all of that stuff. And the hallways at Lincoln has, I think, both state championship team picture hanging in the walls. We went over and played in a fall shootout at Lincoln. And so my DeSoto guys got to walk in and saw those state championship banners and saw my name up there. I don't think the kids at DeSoto really realize the legacy that I've built and what they're going to be a part of now. Yeah, it's just too soon for them to know.
Beyond basketball, you mentioned the fact that you had to be a teacher as well. Those kids, did they have the same kind of inspiration as your players did? Do you teaching those young minds as well?
Believe it or not, yes. I have a trophy, and I keep all my trophies, because when I was a kid, when I've got my first trophy, I polish that thing every day. I mean, I cherish that trophy. So I had a student, I can't remember her name now. She gave me a Teacher of the Year trophy. She brought it to me in hand and she said, "Coach, you're probably never going to get this because people don't think coaches are good teachers." And I always found that to be kind of strange, because if you're coaching, you're teaching. But she said, "You're never probably going to get this from the school, so I'm going to give it to you." And that's one of my favorite trophies, Teacher of the Year trophy from a student that told me maybe I was doing something right. And then I can reach back and grab another story where I got an email. The girl said, "Coach Bacon, I just want to say thank you, because I was taking this stupid health class that you were teaching, and I didn't know why we had to teach this class, but I have a 2-year-old who swallowed an object, and I remembered what you told us when you taught us about CPR, and I saved him. So I just want to thank you."
Incredible. And it's not only from just in the classroom with the students or on, in the basketball court with your players, but your colleagues. I mean, you were also named to the Texas High School Coaches Association of Board of Directors. So I can only imagine there are a lot of coaches that also who have played against you, played with you, and that have worked alongside you, that look up to your accomplishments far beyond just the wins.
Right, I agree. Matter of fact, Seneca Wall, who's one of my assistants, gave up being a head coach just to come work with me as an assistant to try to learn and pick my brain every day about what it takes to be a really good coach. And I thought, I'll never forgive him for that. I'll remember that for the rest of my life. The guy was a head coach, and you say, "I'm gonna step down and be an assistant," because evidently you're doing something right. So I want to know. And we talked about this yesterday, matter of fact, because I had to tell them, I was going to do this interview today, and guys, I'm going to be out of here.
Coach, when next season comes around, are you going to be able to just sit back and watch as a fan, or will you have notes for the new staff?
No notes, but yes, I will be able to sit back and watch as a fan. I like being a fan. The only thing I dislike about being a fan is where I have to sit. Because you have to sit amongst the crowd, and you have to sit amongst the negativity of the fans, take him out, pull him out, coach, you can't coach. So you get to hear all the things that you don't hear when you're sitting on the sideline. Robert Hughes.
Bleachers are not that comfortable either.
Right. Robert Hughes is the all-time leading winningest high school coach in the history of high school basketball. And when I was a young guy, I looked up to him, and he and I used to have candid conversations. And he always told me this. He said, "The best seat in the house is the one on the bench." So I'm going to miss that seat on the bench.
How have those conversations been so far with those closest in your circle?
Tough. I had to tell a security guard today that I was doing this interview, and he almost lost it.
Yeah. Let's talk about that last game. Let's talk about McDonald's for just a second here. You coached the East to a winning game against LeBron James' kid, amongst others.
Right.
What memories are you going to carry with you for the next few years about that one game?
I will never in my life forget that game. Those 5 days were the most enjoyable 5 days I've ever had coaching, period. It doesn't supersede the state championships that I won, but to be around those caliber players with those promising futures and how they responded to my coaching. They could have been arrogant. They could have been some rebellious kids saying, we're going to do what we want to do. We All-American. You just here to manage us. And it went well. I'll never forget how welcoming those kids was. As a matter of fact, a couple of kids on the team, they were talking about the high school coaches, and the guys say, that we're not here for our high school coaches. He's our coach. Matter of fact, he's my coach right now. He's the only one I'm concerned about. And I'm like, wow, in 2 days, I get this kind of respect from kids who didn't know me until the other day. So the McDonald experience, I mean, man, I can go on and on and on about how much fun I had with that. And then to be able to win it. And watching the game the other day, I didn't realize we were that close to losing.
You were just so in the hype of it all.
Right. Because I always felt like we were going to win the game. I just didn't know that it was down to like it was inside a minute before we got the lead. And then we went up by 1, and then we ended up making a couple of free throws after Kaya missed his free throws. And they had the ball with 8 seconds to go for the tie.
Yeah, I'm telling you, those last 2 minutes.
Yeah, I did not want to go
wild.
overtime. Yeah, I did not want to go overtime for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my McDonald experience will live with me until I'm not here anymore. Yep.
Awesome. Over 44 years, you've probably also seen the game change, the coaching styles change. What can you say about how you're leaving the game?
I think the only reason why I had success, and I counted them up, I've coached in 5 decades. Coached in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000, teens, and then 2020 plus. The game itself has changed because it has become a little bit more individualized, more than team, even though it's a team sport. That's the biggest change, because I told the guys yesterday when I was talking to them, I said, guys, back in the 1900s when I played, and they fell out laughing. Oh my gosh, they thought that was funny. Hey, wait a minute, man, it's not that long ago, but
right.
in the 1900s, there were basketball. Michael Jordan played basketball in the 1900s. Magic Johnson played basketball in the 1900s. So we had some really good basketball players in the 1900s. They didn't just get here. But we used to go to find a good gym to go play basketball in. And when we got there, if the competition level was mediocre or not very good, we would go to another gym to try to find a more competitive game. And these guys, they'll dominate in a game or be satisfied with playing against mediocrity. And I just don't understand that. And that's been a big change. I remember telling them that I averaged 25 points a game with no 3-point line, and most of my shots came from behind it. You didn't have a 3-point line, coach? No, in the 1900s, part of it, there was no 3-point line. And so things like that, those are changes, major changes. And I'm glad the 3-point shot is here. I think it changed the game probably. It probably had more impact on the game than any other single rule change that has ever happened. Even bigger than widening the lanes because of guys like Mikan and Chamberlain and Russell. The 3-point shot, man, you have to guard different. You have to, man, it's just, you have to defend different. You have to know where shooters are. Shooters have to get to certain spots to be able to get those types of shots. So you had to coach a little bit different as when the 3-point shot arrived opposed to before it got here. The other thing is, and I hope eventually it happens, the shot clock in high school would be great because now you have to coach every aspect of the game that a kid who inspires to be in the NBA or play on a professional level will be faced with.
Yeah, very true. Do you find kids today versus the 1970s or 1980s, do they have fun with a game? It is still a game.
I don't know if they have as much fun with it because I think too many people have made it be business. You know, I got to get my son on this team so he can get seen by this people, so these people can get him this, so he can get that. And as good as the NIL are for families, boy, it's going to really be a little disruptive until they kind of figure out a way to manage it. And I'm all for people getting money for their talents and stuff like that. I'm not against the NIL, but they're going to have to put some parameters around that thing or it's going to get out of control quick. Speaking
of college players, did you ever have an opportunity to go to be a college coach? Was that ever an aspiration for you?
Yeah, I wanted to be a head coach in college. Matter of fact, I coached at TCU for 3 years under Billy Tubbs from 1994 to 97. That same year that I got the job with Billy Tubbs, as a high school coach, I interviewed for a head coaching job in college at Morgan State. And fortunately or unfortunately, things happened that caused me not to get that job. Well, after the interviews, I was told by the athletic director that my name was going to the president to be hired. The president was not involved in the interviews, so he froze the position for a year, kept one of the assistants as the interim for the next year, and said the 3 finalists can come back and interview again for it next year. Well, I was ready for college, and Billy offered me a pretty good position over at TCU, so I took it. And then he said, you have never coached in college before, and there's so many things you need to know and you need to learn, and I can teach you those things and get you ready to be a big-time college coach. And so I spent those 3 years with him learning about college basketball, and I was ready to do my own thing, but after 3 years, but there was not a college job available for me. And so I ran into this kid at a Maverick game, and he said, Coach Bacon, when are you coming back to high school, man? I said, man, I'm trying to become a head coach in college. He said, kids need you in high school. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so the job at Richland came open. I interviewed for it, got it, and stayed there for 23 years before going to Desoto.
Amazing. Your wife has told you it's time. Is your wife ready to have you with her all the time now?
You know what? I made her a Basketball Wives before Basketball Wives was a television show. And all the drama that they have, we don't have that type of stuff. So what I did was when we met and we finally got married, and she was a big basketball fan anyway. First thing I did was I taught her how to keep a scorebook. So once we got married, anytime I had a game, she had to be at the game because she had to keep a scorebook. So she got used to going to the game. The same thing with my daughter, who's now going off to college. When she was born, she was always at the game because we were at the games. And so when she was really little, and after the team would win a trophy or championship or something, she'd be the first one run out there to take a picture with the team. And so she gets front and center, or they pick her up and, stuff like that. So I involved the entire family into what I did so that there was not a lot of time spent apart. And it worked out well.
It looks like, and it sounds like you have an amazing support system for this new chapter. What does this new chapter entail for you?
Well, it might entail some basketball because a really good friend of mine is Rolando Blackman, former Dallas Maverick legend. Yeah. Not a former legend, but former player, but legend in Dallas. He and I have some business ventures that we're going to get involved with because we've been friends since back in the 1980s. when he was playing for the Mavericks. We met actually playing against each other in the Dallas Pro-Am League, and we became friends and somewhat become his protege. I traveled with him. I've gone and traveled with him all over the world teaching basketball. And that's one of his visions. He wants to educate kids around the world about basketball. And he also wants to educate kids about life. So I know he and I have some projects that are on the table right now that we're going to be trying to put together and get around the country, this country and around the world teaching basketball. So I'm still probably going to be close to basketball. I just won't be at the high school level.
Yeah. So we could possibly see a return of the Richard Bacon ... Rolando Blackman basketball camps.
It might. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's one of his biggest, I don't know how to word that, but he really loves basketball camp. He loves teaching. I used to work all of his camps. Matter of fact, I started working his camps as one of the camp coaches and ended up becoming his camp director. Wow. And I like the way he teaches, and I like how he loves kids. I mean, he literally just loves kids and wants every kid to have an opportunity. We've been to places like Panama. We've been to Germany. We've been all over the United States, New York, St. Louis, different parts of Texas. But the kids in Panama, because Rolando is a native Panamanian, so we went to this little small town called Cologne, and we put on a basketball clinic for a day. And we had kids showing up to the clinic with no shoes. It was so disheartening to me to see these kids who were so excited to see one of our famous native sons come back, put on a basketball camp that plays in the NBA, and with all these coaches. And so what I did the next time we went back to Panama, I went to some of the sporting goods stores in the area. At the time, I was working at Richland. So I went to the academy in Richland, in North Richland Hills, and talked to the manager, told him what I was a part of. He said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, coach. I'm going to give you like $100 gift card to go in here and purchase out. So I bought all kinds of stuff, simple stuff like socks and water bottles, watches, wristbands, headbands. So the next time when I got off the plane in Panama, I looked like Santa Claus. I had this big bag, and the kids were coming up, and I said, I got some gifts for you guys. And a simple thing like a water bottle that they could squeeze water out of meant the world to them. Basketball has afforded me a lot of opportunities, and that's another one I'll never forget.
Coach Bacon, there are no doubt going to be a lot of family, friends, colleagues, and even strangers that are going to watch this interview once it's posted. What's the message you'd like to share with them as they listen to straight from you, straight from your heart?
This is a guy who did 44 years in the kid business and gave everything he had. And it's not that I can't give any more. I'm gonna go back to my opening statement. It's just time. And it'll be another Richard Bacon, because I've challenged some of the younger coaches that I've had tutelage with, or you could say I built a relationship with, and told them the same thing I heard John Thompson tell me. Somebody else has to be ready to take the torch. Yeah. And so I'm ready to pass the torch on to someone else.
It's an incredible legacy, Coach. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. That is Desoto High School boys basketball coach Richard Bacon, the Richard Bacon, off to his next chapter. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you so much.